Good morning. Welcome to Time in His Word. I mentioned the other day that I wasn't a very goal-orientated type of person. I just kind of went with whatever happened for the day. To reiterate, I do have a goal about where I'm going to spend eternity, and I do work towards that goal. But as far as anything else, no, I don't view myself as somebody whose goal, who's set goals and I try to achieve them. But that's just me. And like I said the other day, it's gotten me in trouble a few times. But when you think about it, if I'm not very goal orientated, I can't get much trouble if I didn't meet a goal. You know what I mean? There's a few things in the trucking industry that I wanted to achieve as a driver. I wanted to be able to claim when I finished driving and come off the road that I did so without ever having a wreck or a ticket. And so far I've been able to say that. I have the title. That's what I'm going to get about this morning is titles. I'm not a big title person either. I don't care for phrases. Certain phrases I don't care for, like the phrase that's old school. I don't care for that phrase. The one that really gets me is at Christmas time, He's the reason for the season. I know that's true. I just don't care for that phrase. I don't know. There's just something about it at Christmas time. I just don't care to hear that phrase. I know and recognize that Jesus is the reason for the season at Christmas time, but I just don't care for that. I don't care for that phrase. But again, that's my personal thoughts. That's my personal feelings about it. I have the title of father, husband, grandfather. Those are all nice and honorable titles, and ones that are hard to live up to at times because of my character. I'm one that strives for perfection, which I know I'm human, isn't going to be achieved. You can't achieve perfection, but I strive really hard to be that outstanding person in those relationships. But another title I have, and that is Army brat. I grew up in the Army, lived in and around bases until I was 17 years old, and that's the only life. That was life to us. That's how life was. We didn't move away from a military base and attended civilian schools, we called it, until I was a junior in high school. And it was such a huge transformation that I did not care for the last 2 years of my high school. I wanted, and multiple times told my mother I wanted to go back and live and go to, we called them DOD schools. I understood that life. I understood the way things were, and that's what I wanted, but it wasn't meant to be, and I learned how to adapt, but I never did care for it. But one thing, living around bases, you learn the words and you understand the meaning of the words of country, honor, and God. And those have all had a major impact on my life and helped me get to this point that I'm at today. But the one title that I have, and the one that I am proud of, it's right up there with being called a father, is the title of Christian. I don't think there's a better title to have than the word Christian. It's one that's hard to live up to. Scripture tells us that repeatedly. We can see that in the lives of the disciples, the difficulties they had in laying the groundwork for this Christian faith. The way they were tormented and ridiculed for believing in somebody, known as Jesus. and yet they prevailed and showed us how that we can live through that as well. And Jesus himself was ridiculed and persecuted by the people, but he showed us that leaning on his Father and us leaning on him, we can get through whatever's thrown at us. One thing we need to remember with all these titles and the way life is that we as Christians, this isn't our world. We're only passing through, as I related to yesterday in John the 14th chapter, the first few verses. He's gone to prepare a place for us, and he will come and get us again. And that's such a huge promise to have and to be able to rely on. That if you think about it, it's like a goal. It's like being able. It's a goal to achieve. It's like seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. I'm going to read a few verses this morning. There's a number of them, but I think it's worth reading them rather than trying to paraphrase them like I do, or just hit one or two. But one thing I want you to remember this morning, or think about the titles. Think about the titles you have and what they mean to you, and then think about the title of Christian. And it should be above those titles. It should be, the ones I mentioned, they're important. They're honorable titles. But the title Christian, I think for me, is just one notch higher than the others that I mentioned. I'm going to read this morning out of John the 15th chapter, and it starts in 15, and then I'll read down, I think to 23. Starting in 15, no longer do I call you slaves, for the slave does not know what his master is doing, but I have called you friends. For all things that I've heard from my Father I have made known to you. You did not choose me, but I chose you and appointed you that you would go and bear fruit, and that the fruit would remain, so that whatever you ask of the Father in my name, he may give you. This I command you, to love one another. If the world hates you, you know that it has hated me before it hated you. If you are of the world would love its own. But because you are not of the world, but I choose you out of the world, because of this the world hates you. Remember the word that I said to you, a slave is not greater than his master. If they persecuted me, they will also persecute you. If they have kept my word, they will keep yours as well. But all these things they will do to you for my name's sake, because they do not know the one who sent me. If I had not come and spoken to them, they would not have sinned, but now they have no excuse for their sin. He who hates me hates my Father also. Pretty powerful passage this morning. But think about it. He's telling us that as a child of his, he has chosen us. He has called us. And he tells us what's going to happen to us, because what's happened to us has happened to him. And that gives us strength to go through the day. So think about that. What does the title Christian mean to you, and how has it impacted your life in one way or another?